and welcome to the Gaming Mix podcast. If you don't know me by now, I'm Jordan, one of your hosts, and this is your official podcast from AnalogStickGaming.com, of course. And to my left, as always, we have the founder of Analog Stick Gaming, Jeff. How are you, Jeff?
I'm doing pretty decent. I'm a little bit of awake, a little bit.
Nice. I have been very ill this week, so when we get to it, I basically haven't played anything, but Jeff has us covered during that section. We were originally going to record this episode yesterday, and then I had some things to do because I was ill essentially until Friday this week. I don't know what happened. I just but apparently loads of people were ill, so I don't know if something's just been going around. I do have things to talk about though. We've got some news to cover, all that sort of stuff. You'll be seeing this episode most likely on a Wednesday, and I just want to let you know that there will be probably no episode next week because I'm away on our usual recording day next week. So if you do get an episode next week, it will be later in the week, essentially. So look out for that, make sure you're subscribed and all that sort of stuff. But before we get to the news, Jeff, I know me and you have recently watched something that we'd probably like to talk about. And, we've been doing other things as well. So what have you been up to in life?
Getting back into watching wrestling, so I watched Backlash.
Nice.
Which was pretty decent. I mean, here's the thing. I always call these like mid-card pay-per-views or premium events because like you only really get, I think, like the amazing live events when they're like WrestleMania and Royal Rumble and Survivor Series and SummerSlam.
Or when there's an English crowd.
the big staples. Well, no, not even that. Like the big staples, because like with Backlash, every single one of those matches was 100% predictable.
Yeah, it was so predictable. However, credit to the French because that crowd absolutely loved every single moment of that show, and like I think they're the first crowd that I've ever heard sing Randy Orton's theme song. Like
yeah, no, the crowd was amazing. The atmosphere was great. I think the budget for the stage was zero.
Yeah.
I think like the presentation in terms of what WWE brought over to them, I think was weak.
Yes, I agree with that.
But I mean, like every single match, you knew exactly how it was going to go down. The only match that I thought was not as predictable was, I think it was the first match with Kevin Owens and Randy Orton, where they had another member of the Bloodline kind of reveal themselves.
Yes.
Because like originally, like in a perfect world, how like if they weren't going to build the staple of the Bloodline, and if it was more about like Heyman kind of like excising himself from the Bloodline and maybe going else or whatever, is like I almost would have had like Bloodline's just about to win, and then Roman's music hits.
Yeah.
And then they both stare at the stage, and then all of a sudden, boom, RKO, boom, Kevin Owens does his thing. And then like you find out that Heyman was the one that played the music, like things like that.
I feel like maybe I'm wrong, but I feel like the way that story is going though is that Roman Reigns is going to come back as a fan favorite, and I actually think he'll probably team up with the Usos again, because there was that little backstage interaction with Jey Uso before his match, and obviously they've injured Jimmy Uso.
I think what's going to happen is you're going to have Roman come back, and he's going to take down the new Bloodline.
Yeah.
And I think that is his thing. And I think what's going to happen as well is I think that The Rock's going to come back to run that Bloodline.
Yeah.
And then you're going to have Roman in a Bloodline match, rules match at WrestleMania against
and it's basically
Brock
just
Roman.
Going to be good Bloodline versus bad Bloodline.
Yeah, and I think that's the only way you go with Roman right now, because you can't put him in
Yeah.
contention for the title right away.
I agree. And also I think having like we've heard the fans chanting things like "Thank you, Roman. We want Roman." And I think
Yeah.
there is that appreciation for him now. So you also can't bring him back as the bad guy again. He has to be the good guy when he comes back. And I think that that's kind of what they're setting up right now, is that he's clearly not making the calls. They keep, like, Solo Sokoa and those guys keep saying, like, by order of the tribal chief. But Paul Heyman makes a point of saying Roman wouldn't want this. So I think you're right in the sense of maybe this is like The Rock has taken up the mantle of tribal chief of this new version of the bloodline, and that is where we're eventually going to go with it.
Have you seen the picture of Roman Reigns in a Grogu shirt at Disneyland?
No, I have not. Oh my god. Oh my god.
Yeah.
That's brilliant.
I was hearing about that on the Giant Bomb's Power Bombcast.
I mean, to be
And I was
fair,
like, oh,
Roman Reigns right now deserves to just go wherever and do whatever he wants for a while. I think he does deserve a nice little break. Let the fans miss him for a while, and then come back.
Yeah, it'll be interesting with what they do, but again, like the ladies tag match. You knew Bianca.
That was so predictable. That was so predictable. Yeah. The only one I couldn't 100% call, even though I think it was predictable, was the World Heavyweight Championship match, because I didn't know whether they were going to treat Damian Priest almost like a transitional champion, where it was
he's got to lose it. No. He, like, for me, the reason that it was predictable is because Damian Priest needs to lose at the Castle pay-per-view against
Finn Balor?
No.
Drew McIntyre.
Drew McIntyre. Like, Drew McIntyre has to pin Damian to kind of reclaim his belt.
And he has to have his moment in his place, right? Like, the guy's from Scotland. So
yeah.
I'm obviously going to that event, so if that happens, I will be a happy person.
I'm pretty sure that's what's going to happen. But like for Damian, and they're planting the seeds for it as well. He really needs to leave the Judgment Day.
I like how they're handling that, because what I like about that situation as well is, for anyone who's watched wrestling for a while, you'll know that Finn Balor is actually one of the top names in the company. They've just sort of had him doing this smaller thing for a while, but he is a very credible challenger to Damian Priest, and they could quite easily have a little feud there. I imagine that that's something that's going to come up pretty soon. Obviously they're heading to Saudi Arabia in 3 weeks for the King of the Ring tournament. I kind of have a feeling that maybe Gunther's going to win the Mel tournament there, because he doesn't have a title belt anymore, and I think that making him the King of the Ring kind of gives him this moniker that he can still do something with. But we'll see. Like, I think wrestling is in a really good place right now, and they're doing really good stuff, and I think that taking these smaller events, like you were saying, and they're not small, they're still premium live events, but they are not one of the big ones, right? They're not WrestleMania, they're not SummerSlam, they're not the Royal Rumble.
They're like a glorified episode of SmackDown.
Yeah, in many ways.
Kind of felt.
Yeah. But taking those to other countries, I think, does make them feel more special. You know, it makes them feel more unique, and it gives them a unique feel in terms of the crowd as well. So, you know, I'm very excited for Clash at the Castle in Scotland coming up soon, in about a month or so. And then after that we'll be heading towards SummerSlam, and I can't wait to see what they do. I would expect that by SummerSlam we'll probably start seeing Roman Reigns come back, because I can't imagine him being away for much longer than that.
Filming a movie too.
Yeah.
So I don't know.
Yeah, we'll see. Have you been up to anything else before we get to the gaming news?
I've watched half of the Knuckles
Oh, nice. How
TV
is it?
series. It's exactly what I expected it to be, and that is a mixture of how cheap can we make this, but still have it feel like the Sonic movies.
Oh, interesting. Okay.
Um, so like Sonic and Tails are in the first episode, and then kind of Knuckles goes on his quest to train Whipple, that dumbass cop from the second movie, or first and second movie or whatever. And so like hit Whipple's like his arc is to win a bowling tournament, and so like Knuckles has to like train him to be like a warrior type of thing and stuff like that. And then um, throughout their road trip, someone is hunting Knuckles. And if you've seen the trailer, it's so that he can make some type of like mech suit type of thing out of Knuckles' quills and all that kind of stuff. So, but no, it's cheeky in all the right ways. Um, but it is one of those things where it is like you do have to turn your brain off because like there's a lot of like it's a very dumb show, but it's dumb du- it's dumb done right.
Yeah,
Like
yeah.
it's
That I can appreciate that. I know what you saying that statement just there lets me know exactly what kind of show this is. Where it's like it's not gonna blow you away, and it's not necessarily the best thing you've ever seen, but it's just a bit of fun. It's just a bit of
yeah.
fun. It's having a laugh and a joke, and it doesn't take itself too seriously. But it's probably not so silly that it becomes hard to watch, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
what it
No,
sort of sounds like to me.
it's the first episode's as far as I know available on YouTube to watch for free as well too.
Nice, nice. Well,
Um,
go and check that
but
out if you can. What else have I done? Oh, this is, I guess, we talk about gaming. This is a tech related thing, but it is one of the things I've done this week um, that people may or may not have seen. There's a new or fairly new browser called the Arc browser, web browser, that's come to Windows recently, and I decided to try it out because apparently it's really good for productivity stuff.
hmm,
Um, and it's amazing. Like, I'll be honest, I've used it for like 2 days now, and it might be my favorite browser I've ever used. Like, there's a full screen mode on it where you can actually hide all the sidebars and stuff. Um, there's a picture in picture mode, so if you're watching a YouTube video and you go to a different tab, your YouTube video will be minimized in the corner, and you can kind of resize that and place it over certain things.
I
Uh,
know Firefox does that too, where if you hit like a bunch of buttons, it'll prop
yeah.
a window up and over top of things.
There's a split view thing as well where you don't have to have two separate windows open. You can literally drag a tab and place it next to another tab, and they'll actually be in the same window, almost like a two monitor type situation where you just scroll straight
Okay.
over. Um, and then there's other neat little things, like I've got a folder set up on there of permanent tabs, which is basically the work folder, and it has like our site email address is in there, and I can hover over it and get a preview of any recent emails I've been sent. Um, and then I've got like the login page for the website and a few other things.
Hmm.
Um, and those are like permanent tabs that will always stay there. The other thing is you can have excuse me. So say that you've opened a tab and you're searching something, and you go to another tab, and maybe you forget to close it, or maybe you think, oh, I want to come back to it later, right? You can still close the entire browser, shut down your computer. When you reload your computer, as long as it's within a certain number of hours, that tab will still be there, and you can set
Okay.
the number of hours you'd like it to stay there,
Hmm.
for kind of as long as you want. And by default, if you do forget to close any of those non-permanent tabs, the browser will close them for you after 12 hours. So it's got some really neat features. there's like a notepad feature where you can basically take shots of a web page and then annotate it with little notes and arrows and stuff. So you could essentially make a PowerPoint presentation in the browser. We have a document we use, obviously, for the show here sometimes, and you could use that.
Yeah.
You could basically use that as the document, and you can share it with other people. You can add your own notes. You can do crazy stuff like change the color of websites if you want to make them easier for you to read, change the text type, and it's got a lot. Like, I'm scratching the surface of the features, but it's genuinely really good so far. And I know that the Windows version is slightly behind the macOS version because it came out on macOS first, but because this browser's fairly new and they're asking for feedback all the time and stuff, they are updating it like every week. So every week it will improve and get better, and it feels really refreshing. I know that for most people that's probably boring and they just think, well, as long as I can get to the website I want, I don't care. But as someone that cares about tech stuff, I thought that was quite neat, and I've enjoyed playing around with that for the last few days. While I haven't been able to play video games. So, but we do have lots of interesting gaming news, one or two big controversies as well, and then we have some games to get to what Jeff has played. So why don't we get into the news, Jeff?
Sure. All right. So news today comes from Video Games Chronicle. FromSoft boss Hidetaka Miyazaki has ruled out making a second Elden Ring expansion, but left the door open for a potential sequel. In an interview with Chinese site Zahua, or Zihui, I don't even know how to pronounce that, Miyazaki said the company has no plans for further DLC beyond the game's first expansion, Shadow of the Erd Tree, which will be released in June. He said the company would rather release one major expansion than split additional content into several parts, which would reduce the freedom of exploration and sense of adventure the game offers. Only a few months ago, Miyazaki said From Software wasn't ruling out making Elden Ring 2 or a second expansion for the blockbuster game. While Miyazaki's stance on DLC may have changed, his position on a potential sequel hasn't, meaning From Software isn't closing the door on following up the game. Miyazaki, the director behind Demon's Souls, Dark Souls, Bloodborne, and Elden Ring, has told IGN in February, "We don't want to say that this is the end of Elden Ring saga for now. I think we said a similar thing at the end of Dark Souls 3. We didn't want to flatten those possibilities or put a pin in them just at the time. And a similar story with Elden Ring. We don't want to discourage the possibilities for that. There might be more ideas in the future." Um, yeah, I am really looking forward to Shadow of the Erd Tree. Elden Ring, like, to me, the only blemish in Elden Ring whatsoever was its co-op. And while that's been fixed on PC with the, like the seamless co-op mod, on console, we don't really have that luxury. We have still the same, you kill the boss and then the co-op fades and then you have to
So
re-invite.
the reason I stopped playing Elden Ring is because of the way the co-op works in that game. I would have
Yeah.
played it, if it was seamless and we could have, because you were playing a bit of it in co-op with me, I remember. And if we could have played the whole thing in co-op, I would have played it, because I actually really enjoy that world. I enjoy exploring it. It had some really cool enemy designs. Having someone that was over leveled like yourself was really helpful to me, because I was more in it for the world and yes, the combat as well, but I like being able to explore and having a little bit less of a worry about, oh, I'm going to die in one hit, if you know what I mean.
Yeah.
And I think that there's so many games of a similar type that have done co-op far better at this point. I know that one of the ones you were really talking about was Lords of the Fallen, right?
Yeah, and it just got a major update too.
And there's been a strong rumor that that's coming to Game Pass shortly. So I'm I'm interested if that does come to Game Pass. I'm definitely going to check that one out. But I would like to go back to Elden Ring as well, because even from the 10 hours or so that I played, it is such a high quality game that it's almost like undeniable. Like I can't imagine I can't imagine anyone playing that game and sort of feeling like I don't get it. Yes, it might not be for them. They might go, "Oh, well, this isn't really for me." But I think that everyone who plays that game would see and understand why it got so much love.
Yeah, and see if you can get to the mimic tier, then it creates a clone of your player. So you essentially have two of you going on, and like I've had my mimic tier solo a boss. I didn't touch it. Like it soloed a boss, like one of the
Nice.
main bosses, not a mini boss. Um, so like it is, yeah, like it is it's such a great game. But like if you do have the chance to get Elden Ring, I do suggest getting it on PC, mainly because of the seamless co-op mod,
Yeah.
because it also allows you both to have your horses out at once. Um, like
Nice.
there's a lot of really, really neat things that it does, but that game is undeniably a masterpiece.
Yeah, yeah. And that's exactly what I was talking about is like I so I've watched quite a lot of people play Elden Ring. I haven't ever seen the entire game because I don't want spoilers for the entire thing because I would like to play it, right? But
Yeah.
that moment when you see when you see people figuring out that there's just a whole other place in the game, it's like people lose their minds. It's like, oh
Oh,
my
and it was so funny because like I was writing my another Crab's Treasure review, and I was writing it as I was playing it, so I could go back and tweak it, saying like it'd be nice if it had these like big kind of moments that a lot of games like these have, like Elden Ring, for example.
yeah,
And then like slight spoilers for part of that game, but there is a part where like you go to an area and then you do something and then you get on an elevator and then you go down and there's a whole new area and I'm like, okay, they know what they're doing. Um, so like yeah, like that moment in Elden Ring was amazing. Just because it just felt like you just discovered something incredible. And same with like opening up a chest and getting teleported to the other side of a map in a big red barren
yeah.
hellscape. Like
Do you know what I would love to know? Elden Ring is one of those games where kind of like we get with the Bethesda games sometimes, right? Where one of the things they've talked about with Starfield is that there's still loads of things that no players have seen yet. Like there's loads of things
yeah,
in that game no players have seen. And I
but
wonder whether Elden Ring kind of has the same thing, whether there's a lot of stuff people haven't even discovered yet.
but like for me, the stuff like that is like that stuff all felt memorable. And when you say like, oh, there's tons of things that people haven't found in Starfield, considering that the majority of that game is procedurally generated for its planets, I wonder how memorable that stuff is.
Precisely. Yeah,
Like,
yeah, yeah.
you know, if there was whole major side quests that people haven't discovered because of how they unlock or whatever, then it is what it is. But with Elden Ring, like for me, like Elden Ring has the best open world since Witcher 3
I'd agree
because
with
it
that, even
felt
from the little bit I've played.
like it's one of those things where it's like you can go off the beaten path and sure you're going to get your ass handed to you in some respects because of how the level thing kind of works, but you're always finding something incredible. Like you were like, oh, I wonder what's there, and then all of a sudden there's like a whole new dungeon
I remember
and
I
a whole
went
new little
round a
area.
corner once in Elden Ring and I saw a massive plant that wanted to eat me, and I was just like, no, I'm
Hmm.
not going that way. You know, it's just like
Yeah.
you run into so
Oh,
many crazy things. There's one thing maybe I'm bad at, but I just wish was better in the game, and that is the jumping. Like, I wish the jumping was better, um, because of how you have to use it to traverse certain places. I just think that knowing that that is such a core mechanic in some ways, that's kind of the one thing that I picked up on in my time where I'm like,
yeah.
this is what I would make better about the game. But other than that, it's outstanding. Like it really is outstanding, and it's something like I said that I think everybody can appreciate. I think there's a lot of design lessons to be learnt from it as well. Just from the fact of like, not only is it a really well designed open world, and it gives you a lot of freedom, but it never gives you a lack of direction either. And I think that that is something that some of these very free open worlds sort of struggle with, where they don't give the player enough direction to feel like they're making progress and to feel like they're achieving anything. Whereas in
Yeah.
Elden Ring, I think that no matter which corner you go round, no matter which, which mountain you're trying to climb up, you feel like you're about to achieve something because you always stumble onto something that's worth doing. And I think that's the difference.
Yeah.
What other news
Oh,
do
for
we
sure.
have there, Jeff?
Resident Evil 9 could be revealed soon, with a release date scheduled for January 2025, it's claimed. According to Dusk Golem on Twitter, Resident Evil 9 should be revealed soon and is set to release in early 2025. Dusk Golem has a strong track record of revealing confidential information about upcoming video games before they are made public. The possible delay I had heard murmurs about can be pushed back. They said Resident Evil 9 should be revealed pretty soon and released next year, if what I've heard previously still holds true. The insider also claims that Resident Evil 9 started development in 2018 as a potential eighth entry in the main series. At the time, Resident Evil Village was seen as more of a spin off project before eventually becoming the eighth main entry. This title, informally referred to as Resident Evil 9, also reportedly has the biggest budget and longest development time of any Resident Evil game to date. Now, I want to stress something as well. Village ends in a way where you see a uh, a jump in the future for a character that was younger and now they're older, and um, I don't think that's where Nine's going, because I don't think that they would have considered a spin-off to then dictate the future of the series. I think Nine, it being the biggest budget game, is both a blessing and a curse, because Resident Evil 6 was the biggest budget Resident Evil game of all
At the
time,
time, yeah.
and it did not do well
No, no.
because they just did too much.
And
So I think
also
that
the other the other part of that budget conversation is not to be disrespectful to any team and to their ambition, because more budget does mean bigger ambition, but also games just cost more nowadays. So
yeah,
so I'd
and it's
expect it to be a bigger budget, you know.
and it's the it if the open world rumors are true, then
Hmm.
it's probably pushing the Resident Evil engine, or the RE engine, sorry, Reach for the Moon
Yes.
engine, to its limit. But I think, honestly, because of the success of 2 and 3 and 4 remake, that 9 is a continuation of that story and nothing to do with Ethan Winters.
Interesting.
I
Interesting.
don't think it's going to deal with Rose at all.
I hope that you're right. I'm just not sure that I trust Capcom enough to take that direction. While we're on
I
this
do,
news, though,
especially after the remake,
while we're on this
because
news,
like,
there is
yeah,
another little bit of news that is relevant, sort of, to a point that I want to make. So I'm going to bring it up. There
sure.
was also a prominent leak about the next Tomb Raider game, um,
Yeah,
and
it takes
about
place in
how
India.
that's going to apparently be like a full open world as well, with like you'll have a motorcycle in it and a few other things, and it's like it's interesting to see these franchises that are traditionally quite closed off experiences trying to go into this kind of open world, much bigger space, and I'm
Well,
interested to see how they handle that. I know that with Tomb Raider, for example, the last one had the open areas, so that was slightly different, right? But Resident Evil to me has always been best when it's like, no, we're gonna have you in enclosed spaces.
I don't think that's going to change. I think Resident Evil's open world is just going to be a large city that still has those claustrophobic moments.
Interesting.
Whereas I think Tomb Raider lends itself to being these big open areas because it needs that scale and it needs those vistas to
To
really
have the
sell
wonder,
off that
right?
it's an adventure.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I think Resident Evil is still going to have those moments where you're going down a street
Interesting,
and
because
there's zombies shambling everywhere.
that's
Like
what I'm
it's still
really
going to have that.
hoping for. Because don't get me wrong, open world Resident Evil sounds cool, right? In the sense
Yeah.
of you could do some really cool things. I'm not saying they will do this, but obviously I've been replaying Days Gone a bit recently. I haven't played it this week, but I have played it recently, and there is something that could be done that's quite cool with potentially bigger groups of zombies in Resident Evil, which we haven't really seen before. That they could do mechanically, especially if they're heading towards a more open world design. I could see them adding something like, get away from this horde or deal with this horde in a certain like. I could see them adding something like that just to add a new layer of like danger within the open world, so that maybe it's like, oh, you have to get away from this horde, and you end up going into a building that you're then sort of locked into for maybe an hour or two, where you have to sort of figure like a way out, you know, and that's where you find your puzzles and your other interesting little things. um I'm going to be really interested to see how they handle it, because if it's a more traditional open world, I'm not sure Resident Evil will do very well in that. Maybe it's
Yeah,
just me,
I
but
think it's going to be I think it's going to be an open city and not open world,
I
because
hope
open
so.
world it kind of the connotation there is that it's large vistas and like a scale that's massive. I don't think that's what we're getting with Resident Evil.
No,
Like
no.
I think we'll get a city. I think we'll get like a really fun like
If
vehicle chase scene
if
or
we could
something through the
if we
city.
could get something like a Yakuza-sized game where you can actually go in and out of most of the buildings, that
Yeah.
would be really cool.
I think it's still going to play like Resident Evil. I think they saw the feedback to 4 and
Yeah.
3 and 2 for remakes, and they're like, okay, let's just make a big version of
And
that.
let's be fair to Capcom, they seem like they might have a good year coming next year, because I think they've got
Yeah.
a Monster Hunter game as well, right?
Oh
So
yeah. Last thing on the Resident Evil is, I would put money on it that the next Resident Evil is co-op, much like 5.
interesting, interesting. If it is, let's play it together, because that'll be fun.
Because like if you're going to be bringing a lot of those characters back, it makes sense to have them like multiple on screen
That's
at once.
true, actually. I never even thought about that, but you're right. If there's that many, if you're dealing with that many characters, you could do co-op quite easily, and I think that that would be a way to set the game apart from the
Because
others.
you look at their last animated movie, Dead Island or Death Island or whatever
Hmm.
like that, that was like a greatest hits of all those characters. So I think that's probably where Capcom's going with it.
Absolutely, absolutely. Um,
Um,
what else do we
yeah,
have?
we got lots. All right. So Nintendo has taken down more than 8,500 clones of the Switch emulator Yuzu with a single DMCA notice. As reported by Torrent Freak, the company issued a DMCA notice at GitHub this week, which led to GitHub removing 8,535 repositories containing versions of the emulator. In a statement made on GitHub's page, the site explained that since Nintendo had pointed out that more than 100 repositories that it alleged were offering the emulator, GitHub applied the same action to all of them. Because the reported network that contained the allegedly infringing content was larger than 100 repositories, the submitter alleged that all or most of the forks were infringing to the same extent as the parent repository. GitHub processed the takedown notice against the entire network of 8,535 repositories, inclusive of the parent repository, it stated. The speed and size of the takedown appears to have been affected by Nintendo's decision to sue Tropic Haze, the creator of Yuzu, in February. Um, so a lot of people that were holding out hope that like there were going to be clones of that emulator, yeah, you're
No.
not going to see that happening. And even if they do pop up, Nintendo is just going to be like, yeah, no.
I think this brings up an interesting industry conversation more than anything, which is the direction I'd like to go with this conversation. Um, because look, there's a reason that people want to emulate Nintendo stuff so badly, right? And
Yeah,
most of the time that comes down to sorry Nintendo, but other hardware can run your games much better, even when it's being emulated. Um,
Yeah.
and I just wonder, with the direction that we see the others heading in, I know that Nintendo's different, but look, let's be very clear. We're going to talk more about Sony later, but they're very much heading towards, within 5 years, I expect all of their games to be day one PC. I think
Yeah.
that's going to come fairly quickly now. Xbox have been doing day one PC for many, many years. I do think there's a time in the future where Nintendo will release their stuff on PC. I don't think they'll get to the point like the other guys probably will, where they're releasing all of their games on other consoles as well. Because I think that Nintendo will always sell enough hardware for that to not really be an issue. But I do think that at some point they need to release their stuff on PC. Am I crazy, Jeff?
No, I think Nintendo will also do it in the most bullshit reason, like way. Like, honestly, I could see Nintendo's next console having some type of like PC attached type of thing, where in order to play the games on PC, you actually have to take that console
Yeah,
and
you have to
attach it.
connect the console. Yeah.
Like it'll do that, and then there'll be a mobile app tossed in there as well too. Um,
Like
but
but I feel
yeah,
like they have to though, right? I feel like we are getting to that point where, don't get me wrong, the Switch 2 is on the horizon and it's probably going to be a better machine than the Switch 1. That's safe to assume. However, handheld devices, because of the limitation in size, will always have a limitation in what they're able to achieve, right? And
yeah,
are we ever going to see, like, most Nintendo games, for example, are running at 30 frames at best. That isn't even the case most of the time. Um,
yeah,
and they're not running at very high resolutions, even when you dock the Switch onto your TV, which forces it to run in a higher resolution.
yeah.
Um, and then we've got things like emulators like Yuzu that people have been using to play Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom in 4K at 60 FPS, and it runs basically flawlessly. It's kind of like, is this... I get that Nintendo are very protective of their stuff because they're the one company where I believe that exclusives genuinely does sell their hardware, and I think the attach rates of their games show you that. I don't think exclusives really matter to either of the other hardware platform holders. Um,
I think they try to make them sound important. But then
yeah.
you take a look at the sales of like things like, God of War and
When you
whatnot,
put it
which
this way,
sell a good amount, but not.
I'm not saying those games don't sell well, but Spider-Man, the original 2018 Spider-Man, is the
Yeah,
best-selling PlayStation first-party game ever, I believe, and it sold 24 million copies on a potential 150 million consoles or something like that.
yeah, that's what I was just going to look up. And I'm
So,
like, that percentage is not great. It sounds amazing until you put how many consoles are out there.
yeah.
Like that's the thing about it
Whereas,
is like,
whereas you
yeah,
look at Nintendo's data, and it's like, I think one of the Zelda games sold like 35 million, and I think that was Breath of the Wild, and at the time they had less than 100 million consoles sold. Do you know what I mean?
and Mario Kart 8 is at 69 nice 0.04 million copies sold.
Yeah, and that's obviously available on many more devices, but the point is, the Nintendo attach rate for exclusives is much higher than any of the other platforms. And yes, it's why I laugh when people go, oh well, third parties won't really support Xbox anymore if they do what they're doing, and it's like, yeah, that might be true, but third parties don't really support Nintendo either, and they're absolutely fine. So, you know, it's just like, I don't know. I think we've entered a world where people don't seem to think about this stuff logically, and going back to Nintendo, I just think that the way that I look at the industry over probably the last 20 years now, since the 360 generation, and this isn't me trying to be negative towards any of the brands, but, excuse me one second, but if the way that I look at it is, Xbox always seems to be the brand that is pushing innovation, but sometimes too early, and that kind of shoots them in the foot and really hurts them. PlayStation is sort of playing catch up, but is usually the second to do things, other than the crossplay thing. And then Nintendo will only do something when they get to the point where they know they have to, otherwise it's going to be bad for them. And I think that we're probably 10 years away from them putting their stuff natively on PC, but I think it will happen. Because I think once the other two have done it, I think there will be a lot of pressure for them to then do it, because it will sort of be like, well, why are you not doing it?
The only thing that I could see Nintendo doing is if they put their stuff on PC, it'll be through their own launcher. I don't think they'll ever put stuff on Epic. I don't think they'll ever put stuff on Steam, because I think the modding community would ruin Nintendo's like pristine image of
I
what they want
agree.
their games to
I
be.
agree. But the other thing is, you know, Nintendo probably wouldn't do the best launcher, but they have games that mean enough to people that people would put up with a bad launcher to play their games. Do you know what I mean? Like look at the Nintendo Online service, Jeff. Let's be honest, it's not great, is it?
No, I don't know why I keep paying for it. All right, move on here. Um, Bethesda has detailed the next Starfield update, which includes improved surface maps, and new performance options, among other features. So, update 1.11.33, which is available now in Steam beta ahead of general release on May 15th, includes detailed surface maps, something fans have requested since the release of the game. These maps show every piece of geometry in an area, including remote locations rather than just large cities. Players can now also see markers for important locations in large cities, such as shops, mission objectives, and more. An extreme difficulty has also been introduced, which is now the game's highest difficulty settings. Players can now customize the interior of their ships, similar to the way that players could already customize their homesteads. This includes changing the position of furniture and other decorative items. This update will also change the game's performance mode on Xbox Series X. The performance mode will now target 60 FPS, and users with an VRR display, a 40 FPS option will also be available. You can now choose between 30, 40, and 60 on uncapped frame rate on VRR displays. If you do not have a VRR display running 120 Hz, you will still be able to select from 30 or 60. Screen tearing may occur at times when selecting 60 on a non-VRR display. They'll probably patch that. You can now prioritize between visuals and performance while trying to maintain the frame rate target. If you're choosing a frame rate target of 60 or above, we recommend changing this to performance. Prioritizing visuals keeps the highest resolution while maintaining full detail for special effects, lighting, and crowds. Yeah, like this is the kind of stuff that I kind of wish was just available when the game came out, especially those
I
maps.
agree. What I will say is that I think that, I'm gonna be careful about how I say this, but I think that what we have to remember is that sometimes that, like, as a designer, you'll have an idea for a game, and you'll have an idea for the way that you want players to engage with it, and then once that game comes out, the players tell you they want to engage a different way, and that's why you have to make changes. For example, the city map thing. I didn't find it that bothersome. I understand why many players did, but I also understand why they made the choice to not have city maps, if that makes sense. Um, and I think it was about immersion. I think it was about we want you to learn these places and know them rather than need a map to get around them. um,
Yeah, but here's the thing. They still made the maps and gave them to the outlets that were doing guides.
yeah, precisely, and
Like
and
that,
that's where my issue comes in. Is it's weird, right? What I will say on a more positive front is that I like that they are still updating the game. This proves that they're also clearly listening to feedback, because there is things in here that they wouldn't have planned previously, like the land vehicle is coming. I don't think they ever planned to have that in the game, but I think that's probably something where they were like, well, loads of people are requesting it, let's just do it. You know?
yeah, like I'm again, like I wasn't amazingly hot on that game, but I definitely do agree with like Jeff Grubb's kind of opinion on it is like when I land on a planet, if I'm not immediately having fun, they fucked up. And that's the thing with most of those planets is it was just like barren, open wasteland, nothing,
Yeah.
and you just had
Well,
to
I
run
think one
everywhere.
of the best. I really liked the game, as you know,
Yeah.
but I think that part of that is also to do with the way that I played it, where I mostly focused on purely quests. I didn't really go off exploring on my own. So I only went to somewhere if I was going there for a questing reason. Um, and I think that just created this complete different experience, right? That's what I like about a Bethesda game. You can play it the way you want to play it. However, one of the best things I heard about this game in terms of observations was if they had made this game and decided to focus on like 30 really great planets instead, it would have been amazing. But because they went so big with it, it sort of takes away from the experience, because yes, there's amazing stuff within the game, but you could also land on a planet and it might have nothing. And that becomes part of the problem, right? Because it's taking people longer to find the stuff that is great than it should.
Hmm.
And I think that's the
Yeah,
issue.
like this update is not going to have me replay it at all
No.
in the slightest
I
bit. Am I
you
interested
know,
in doing it?
I'll probably go back to it just because I was enjoying it anyway, just to see if the update actually performs well. For me,
Yeah.
mostly though, I'm just waiting for the DLC at this point, because I did like the story of Starfield, and I'm interested to see what that DLC story is going to be, because I think that Bethesda have a history of doing very good DLC. One point I wanted to make about this update though is that I wonder whether, because I've never, maybe I'm wrong, but I've never really seen Bethesda support a game like this, and that's not to say they don't support their games, but my perception has always been that generally they might do some bug fixes and stuff, but most actual quality of life improvements have always been left to modders, or they'll be packaged in with when an actual expansion comes. And they won't
Yeah, 'cause
be
they
part of
supported like
patches.
their Fallout games quite a bit for DLC as well too.
Yeah, and
But
that's what I mean. Because
I think the structure for those games were a little bit better sound.
they've always done well with expansion DLC, right? Like in Fallout 4, they had like the Far Harbor and that kind of stuff. But in terms of, maybe I'm wrong, but I just feel like in terms of actual quality of life patches to the base game itself, it was
Yeah,
always it was always kind of left to modders. Like I remember Skyrim being a big like, oh, you didn't really fix much of this, but modders did it for you, kind of thing.
yeah, yeah. But I think like like Starfield, like a lot of the biggest Bethesda modders have no interest.
Yeah,
So I think
they had
Bethesda
to,
had
right?
to
Yeah.
they had to do it
But
themselves.
I think where I was going with it is I wonder how much difference now being owned by Microsoft made to how they will approach games after release in the future, because
Maybe.
they don't seem like they're giving up on Starfield, which they might have done in the past. And apparently, I think it was PC Gamer who said you should forget Starfield and just move on to Fallout. And it's like, really? Like, as mixed as Starfield might have been perceived, I personally don't consider a game that was in the 80s for review
Wasn't
average to be a mixed
wasn't
game.
there? Didn't I read something where it's like last year of like the top 10 games for like new IP, Starfield was like the only one that made a splash or
Yeah,
something like
yeah,
that.
yeah. I think it was the best. I think it was the best selling new IP last year, right? And we had Todd Howard recently confirm that outside of Fallout 4, it was the biggest launch in the history of the company, which I think
Yeah.
that when you, and he said both from a player standpoint and a money and a commercial standpoint, and I think that when you consider that actually Starfield had a much smaller audience to choose from because it wasn't available on PlayStation, that is quite impressive. Like, we know that it sold, from revenue numbers alone, we know that it sold at least 4 million copies on Steam, and it's like, I think it was a good, it got into the top 10 for sales despite being available on Game Pass. I
Yeah.
think it was like number 7 for most selling games last year. And it's like, or something like that. It was pretty high. I think it was third on revenue on Steam, and it was behind like Baldur's Gate 3 and one other thing. It's the game is a success, and companies are not going to drop a game that's a success just because some people didn't like it. If they did that, we'd end up with another Days Gone situation, essentially. And that's all kicking off now because obviously Housemarque have teased a Returnal 2, but we know that Returnal made hardly any money because there was a leak recently about how many sales for every PlayStation game ever in terms of digital sales basically came out. Um, and Housemarque on Returnal effectively made no money. And it's like, but if you're going to do a sequel for that, why didn't you do, and I think that it comes down to that thing I'm saying is like, if companies dropped games just because a portion of the audience didn't like it, we'd never get anywhere in this business. So I
Yeah.
hope to see them support it for a long time, and I think that Starfield, as it gets added to and has these expansions and has these DLCs and things, I think in say 3 or 4 years time, we'll probably be looking at a completely different game in the same way that we're looking at a different game with like Fallout 76, for example.
All right.
So what else do we have to talk about?
So, 2K and WWE Games have unbanned What the Status, a popular modder who was indefinitely restricted from the online portion of WWE 2K24 last week. Now, we reported this on our previous episode.
We did.
So, as reported by VGC, Status was banned for violation of terms, according to a statement from 2K. Mods which negatively impact the game experience for other players violate our terms. Our primary concern is a positive WWE 2K24 experience for all players. A spokesperson for 2K told VGC at the time. Status is known for uploading modded content, as well as content typically inaccessible by players. Now, following the backlash that saw free status trend in multiple countries, 2K has lifted the ban. He then posted on Twitter, WWE Games and I have met on how my mods can impact the game. We've come to an agreement and a fair one at that. Thank you guys for all the support, and thanks to all of you, my ban has been lifted. Um, a post from WWE Games Reddit account followed, writing, "We've heard your voices and want to let you know that we've met with Status and had a productive discussion, touching on stability concerns and performance issues related to some of his popular mods. As a result of this discourse, we are lifting his ban effective immediately, working with him to bring back some of his content that doesn't cause stability issues, and moving forward with him towards a common understanding. It is unknown what agreement was reached between both parties, and it is likely that some of Status's most popular mods will not return. One of Status's largest and most popular mods was that he uploaded every female wrestler in the game. However, these versions of the characters could fight male wrestlers, something not possible in the base game. While WWE has featured a few moments of intergender wrestling in recent years, it is largely against WWE's brand guidelines. Um, yeah, so like this is kind of like very, very, very good news for the WWE community. Very good news for
Yes.
him as well too. I mean, it is going to limit some of what his popularity has kind of garnered,
Yeah,
but
absolutely. However, I think that as I mentioned on our last recording, you know, there are very good reasons that they want to limit some of the stuff he was doing. And that's not me
yeah,
taking a shot at him, but at the end of the day, if you're doing something that can potentially hurt a brand that is not only 2K, but as big as the WWE, and potentially even impact on that relation between those two companies, it's going to cause a problem, right? So I imagine when they say they've made an agreement with him or had a discussion, I imagine what's probably happened is, look, we don't really care about you making wrestlers that are not normally accessible, but you need to stop doing the uploading women basically as male wrestlers to allow them to fight male wrestlers. I think that's probably the part that's going to go away. I don't know, I could be wrong, but I think that was probably the reason that he got banned in the first place because, like I mentioned, he didn't do that in the previous years when he's uploaded this kind of stuff, and he's never been banned previously, so I think that's probably where we're at. I'm glad that they were able to remedy this situation, almost as glad as I am about Remedy Games and their future. But I think we've got a little bit of news on that, haven't we, Jeff?
for what? Sorry, I was just responding to something.
Remedy. I was just talking about Remedy,
Oh
and I
yeah, yeah.
said I'm quite excited
But
about
I
their
got it
future, almost as glad as I
right
am
up
about
here.
the remedied situation between WWE games and what their status.
Oh yeah. So Remedy has provided an update on Codename Condor, the cooperative multiplayer game set in the Control universe. The Finnish company said today that the game has moved from the production readiness stage as discussed last month to full production, meaning it has reached the final development stage before a game is launched. Based on the wide internal playtests, we can see that the core loop is engaging and that the game brings a unique Remedy angle to the genre. Billed as the studio's first step towards a service-based game, Condor has an internal initial development budget of around $27.1 million US. Built on Remedy's in-house Northlight engine, it is a development for PC, PS5, and Xbox Series X and S. Um, After the Hiss invasion, the oldest house is under lockdown, a boiling pot of volatile and dangerous supernatural forces, Remedy said of the game in its annual financial report, which was published in March. Trapped within the vast vestige of the Federal Bureau of Control, who will need to take a stand and push back to regain control, desperate times require desperate measures, and everyone's needed. Yeah, like this is the kind of thing where like some studios are like, okay, we need to make a multiplayer game that's going to generate us revenue, but then a lot of them just fumble at the finish line. You had the Spider-Man one
Yeah,
that looked amazing off that trailer, and Sony's like,
yeah,
yeah, we won't be able to financially support that. And then they do a Last of Us, yeah, we won't be able to financially support that.
yeah.
So I hope Remedy can, because I know that like because
Well,
Alan Wake 2 is not on Steam,
yeah,
that it has yet to really
yeah.
make a
So
profit.
there's a few reasons I'm excited for this. Firstly, on the back end, I think they're doing the clever thing of this is a £27 million or $1 million project. That is a lower budget in terms of the games that Remedy do and the types of games we're talking about. But that's a good thing because it means that they're being constrained in what they're doing. And the reason it excites me from a gameplay and game point of view is because we haven't really seen anybody do a do a solid story in a live service type game. And I think if anyone could do it, it's probably Remedy. And I do actually think that we don't have confirmation, but I think there will be solid story in here. The reason I think that is because the rumor about Control 2, which will obviously be the next kind of mainline game in the Alan Wake universe, is that it's set after the Eldest House has been on lockdown for years. And what does this game? This game here says the Eldest House is on
It'll be another
lockdown.
thing where you're gonna have to play this to even understand like a freaking like scene in like another game
Precisely,
7 years from now.
precisely, and that's exactly what Remedy do. But that's the reason I think they might be able to capture something that we haven't seen within this type of game before. And not only that, but let's be honest, Control's gameplay was just really cool, right? So I'm interested to see, like, if they're gonna have multiple characters, for example. I imagine you're probably gonna be able to play as Jesse in the game. Are you gonna be able to play as the janitor Atty as well? Like, he has some sort of weird magical
I I
powers.
think I think you're gonna make your own character. I don't think you'll play as Jessie at all. I think she'll be
Interesting.
a force that you'll probably pop in and out and stuff, but I
Interesting.
don't think that she'll be playable. Because if it's
Interesting.
a multiplayer game, is everybody Jessie?
True.
Like
True.
so I think you would have to make your own character.
Yeah, I guess it depends on how story heavy they're gonna make it, right? Because if they want to
Yeah.
do something that's story heavy, they're gonna need to they're gonna need to include existing characters. So it's gonna be interesting to see. I really like Remedy stuff. I'm a big fan. You can go and read my Alan Wake 2 review on the website right now. If you haven't played Alan Wake 2, because we spoke about it just now, please play it. And look, even if you're a PC player and you're not buying it on PC because it's only on Epic, if you have a console, just buy it on console and play it, please. Like, this game, as much as Jeff didn't agree with me in terms of we fall in slightly different places on the game, I think he would say that it deserves to be played. Like,
Oh yeah, like Alan Wake 2, like it deserves the sales. Like Remedy has shown that they absolutely deserve it.
yeah.
I personally didn't love the game, but I mean like it deserves to at least make its money
And
back.
I don't think you disliked it either, right? It wasn't like, oh, I don't like this game. It was just, you just fell in a
Yeah, no,
different
just it.
place.
I was just very indifferent on it. Like I didn't like the story or anything like that. Some of the
Yeah.
gameplay elements and stuff
Well,
were
you
like
can
iffy
go
on
and
it. Like
find
I,
out what
you know,
Jeff thought by watching our spoiler cast, which is still on the channel. So check that out if you haven't already. Um, but I think we got a few other pieces of news here. So
yeah,
why don't we do
I'm
the
just cool.
very sad bit of news next, Jeff?
Yeah. So that Take-Two is reportedly planning to shut down private division studios Roll7 and Intercept Games as part of a recent announced restructuring. Last month, the publisher said it planned to lay off about 5% of its workforce, or around 600 people, as part of a cost-cutting measures that would result in the cancellation of unnamed game projects. Two casualties of this restructuring are Roll7, the London-based developer behind Ollie Ollie and Rollerdrome, which were developed and released within like a year of each other, and Seattle-based Intercept Games, which developed Kerbal Space Program 2, according to the documentation seen by Bloomberg. After reports of Intercept Games' closure began circulating online, a spokesperson for Take-Two had earlier refused to comment on the status of the studio. On April 16th, Take-Two announced a program, cost reduction program to identify efficiencies across its business to enhance the company's margin profile, which while still investing for growth, they told Game Developer. As part of these efforts, the company is rationalizing its pipeline and eliminating several projects in development and streamlining its organizational structure, which will eliminate headcount and reduce future hiring needs. The company is not providing additional details on this program. On April 18th, Private Division successfully launched Moon Studios' No Rest for the Wicked, the statement continued. The label continues to make updates to Kerbal Space Program 2 and plans to release Weta Workshop's Game Studios' Tales of the Shire, a Lord of the Rings game, on the second half of 2024. Um, so yeah, this sucks because
It
like
does.
Ollie Ollie World or Ollie Ollie, I thought was fine. I played a little bit of it. I thought it was fine. I haven't played Rollerdrome. It definitely looked really interesting.
But
It
people
just sucks
really
that these
liked it.
studios.
That's the thing. And these
It just sucks.
studios,
Yeah,
they
and
deserved better.
it it sucks that this is coming from Take-Two, who owns Grand Theft fucking Auto,
and is about to make billions in profit next year.
they're going to make so much money. They could literally bankroll like 45 games the size of Roller Drome and like still take every employee out to like a steak dinner.
Yeah,
Like,
absolutely.
fucking hell.
I do want to say as well that it does actually go a bit deeper than this, because I think that it was the day after this news we found out that there's also further cuts across Private Division, and they're actually losing some of their staff, I believe, in one of their like New York places and some other places. And it's a real shame, because Private Division is essentially, for those that don't know, it's essentially Take-Two Interactive's version of the EA Originals program. They are essentially a spin-off publisher that work with outside development studios to basically do things. So they published the first Outer Worlds game from Obsidian. They've published a few really other cool things as well. Obviously they are currently publisher on No Rest for the Wicked, but that's in early access. So I hope that this doesn't affect their publishing agreement there. But given that Private Division seems to be getting gutted, who knows what's going to happen in that situation. What I will say for Moon Studios, they've just released a hell of a game even in early access, so I think that if they did lose their publisher, they would be very fine in finding somebody else. And I think that there's probably a team they'd go to and ask a few questions if they needed to. So they'll be fine. But man, this news sucks, because, you know, especially when it's a company like that, Jeff, as you just said, they own literally the biggest IP in all of gaming. They're about to make billions. They probably still make billions every month from GTA 5 Online. They don't need to do this. They actually never need to cut any of their staff.
They could literally just put Shark Card on sale, like 20% off sale, and just have bankroll.
Yeah.
Like,
and also,
games.
with these smaller projects, you think about how much these smaller projects cost, right? And I guarantee you something like Ollie Ollie World was probably a couple of $1 million at most. Like, it probably wasn't a big budget game. You know, we're probably talking like sub $10 million for actual development costs. They make that back in a day. Like, it would not affect them in any way whatsoever. And that's why this makes me sick. Like, this whole situation really, really makes me sick. And I get it. You haven't had a new GTA for a while. You haven't had a new Rockstar game for a while. I know that the 2K games are not making as much money as they used to, right, in terms of microtransaction stuff, because I think people have just got fed up with how egregious the microtransactions are in NBA 2K, for example. But they've just released a tennis game, which I'm pretty sure will make them money. They just released the most successful WWE game that they've had so far. Like, they're not exactly doing badly as a company, and they're about to make so much more money next year.
Yeah,
I don't.
And
get
they even
it.
talk about shutting them down to increase their margin growth.
Yeah.
like fuck off. You're like, honestly, ride the storm, because I guarantee you Grand Theft Auto is going to make you more fucking money than you could ever possibly imagine.
Yeah, and and like you said, the thing is, it's gonna make them, on that launch day of GTA, they're probably going to make billions in one day, right? They're probably going to make billions in profit in one day. That is enough to fund hundreds of these kinds of projects. Like, and they'd still be in profit. So I don't really understand what the issue is here. And I am, you know me, Jeff. I normally see both sides of these situations, even in the worst case scenarios. But this is
Yeah.
just disgusting. Like,
Yeah.
this is just disgusting, and it's really sad. But we do have some happier news because I believe that a game you're very excited about got funded recently. So what's that one?
Yeah, I just got to bring that up here. Sorry, I forgot to prep that particular one. Um, so yeah, this comes to us from analogs@gaming.com. Um, so Lady Death. This is a comic character that was my high school like era. Like I was I loved the character, like everything that was around that at the time, like with Lady Death, you get Evil Ernie, you get Purgatory, all these characters that were all part of that thing. So Lady Death's pursuit of vengeance is stepping off of the page and onto the screen. Lady Death, the Nomicon, canonical beat 'em up video game in the Lady Death universe, has been funded on Kickstarter and is coming to PC and console. All Lady Death wishes is to mourn her friend in peace, which is difficult to do when a horde of demonic enemies swarm the cemetery gates. These malevolent forces hound Lady Death between realms, invoking a hunt through alternative realities that bring forth a sinister mystery. Poised to help is Ravenheart, a hunted swordsman prepared to accompany Lady Death through these ominous realms in search of answers to a convoluted mystery. Little does she know, but Lady Death is about to enter the most brutal battle of her undead life. The game is a kind of like Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles in time, kind of like beat 'em up brawler, Streets of Rage, all that stuff. That has two players. Everything is gorgeous. It's all hand drawn. It looks literally like almost like if you were to do like a Lady Death like visual novel story, like that's how good the artwork looks. And I can't wait to see this game in motion because even the trailer is just a bunch of still frames, so it doesn't actually show any actual gameplay. Um, but yeah, I'm super pumped for this. Like this is the first time Lady Death's been, as far as I know, in a video game. It's her first video game. Um, and Brian Paluto is behind it a lot as well too, the creator of Lady Death. But yeah, like I'm interested to see if like Purgatory guest stars. I'm interested to see if like you can unlock Evil Ernie as like a co-op partner or something like that, or even like a summon or something like that. It talks about alternative reality, so I'm guessing we're probably going to be fighting like different versions of Lady Death, maybe. Um, but
One
yeah,
thing I'll
I'm
say about
pumped.
this is you sent me a little I think it was a screenshot of the game or some art from it, and man, it looks amazing. Like just stylistically, it's so nice to look at. Um, because this isn't something that I'm familiar with, but you
Yeah.
know it's definitely something I'll keep my eye on because it sounds like the kind of game that I would enjoy. Is what they're trying to essentially make here. Um, and I'm glad that you're happy about it. There it is. You can sort of see it there. Um,
It's not really zooming in. It's not focusing that well, but
yeah. We will
like it
well what
just
we'll do,
it just looks amazing.
we'll link to our news piece in the description of this video, and then you can go straight to it, and hopefully Jeff has been clever enough to put an image up in that news piece and you can see it
Oh
there.
yeah, yeah.
So
Oh yeah, there's images, there's the trailer as well, but it's literally just showing like two screenshots and a bunch of things and stuff. But
nice.
no, I'm super pumped for
I'm
this.
glad you're excited. I always like it when, and you'll know this was a moment for me, Jeff, because you know me. I love the Shenmue franchise. When Shenmue 3, although that game ultimately, because of budget constraints and stuff, didn't turn out how I wanted it to in the end, when it got funded, that bit of pride that I felt in like finally, it was like finally I've got something that I've really wanted for such a long time. So I can appreciate your excitement for something that you liked in your younger years that is making a
I
return.
just never thought we would get a Lady Death video game because I
Uh,
think there was like a Lady Death animated movie as well, but
That's cool.
I just never thought we would get a video game after all this time.
That's cool. Well,
Like,
let's end our news section on some positive news and hopefully a good discussion that we can have before we talk about what we've been playing.
we got one news before we get to
do
the
we? Do we? Are we?
that one.
Have I missed one? What have I missed?
This is the big one. This is the big one. This is our thumbnail.
Oh yes!
The
Oh
Steam,
my god!
yeah. So the Steam version of HellDivers will soon require all players to sign in with a PlayStation Network account. The requirement was present when the game originally launched, but after its unexpected early access success led to severe technical issues, it was temporarily removed. Now, a message from Sony, not the developer, a message from Sony on the game's Steam page confirms that the requirement will return on May 30th and that all players will need to have linked their Steam and PlayStation Network account by June 4th. Due to technical issues at the launch of HellDivers 2, we allowed the linking requirements for Steam access for Steam accounts to a PlayStation Network account to be temporarily optional, Sony said. That grace period will now expire. Account linking plays a critical role in protecting our players. I honestly, when I read this line, I rolled my eyes because I'm like, really?
Yeah.
Your network has been hacked how many times?
More than anyone, I think.
Dear Lord. All right. Account linking plays a critical role in protecting our players and upholding the value of safety and security provided on PlayStation and PlayStation Studios games. Yeah, fucking hell. This is our main way to protect our players from griefing and abuse by enabling the banning of players that engage in that type of behavior. It also allows those players that have been banned the right to appeal. As such, as of May 6th, all new HellDivers 2 players on Steam will be required to connect their Steam account to a PlayStation Network account. Current players on Steam will start to see the mandatory login from May 30th and will be required to have a linked Steam and PlayStation account by June 4th. PlayStation Network accounts are free and easy to set up using this link, except in, what is this? 118 countries are unsupported.
Where the game's now unlisted and you can't buy it anymore as well. So
in 118 countries, you are like, this is bullshit. Yeah. We understand that while this may be an inconvenience to some of you, 118 countries, this step will help us to continue and build a community, except for those 118 countries, that you are all proud to be a part of. HellDivers 2, Next Premium, War Bond, blah, 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 blah. This is fucking bullshit. Now, the people from HellDivers have said that they're working with Sony to address something. There might be something where in those 118 countries that they don't need to. I don't know what's going to happen with that.
And also the other thing is, this, just to let people know, the devs didn't even know this was happening. It actually got sprung on them by Sony. They weren't aware of the change. They didn't know. Obviously, they knew it was eventually going to come back, but they didn't know it was going to be now. They didn't know how it was going to be handled.
All that goodwill is gone.
Yeah,
and it's not even their fault.
Precisely, and that sucks. And it's like we've seen what's happened with the Steam reviews. Obviously,
Steam's allowing refunds even if you have like 100 hours in the game.
Yeah, and this is part of my problem as well, right? Is good on Steam for doing that, because they should do that, but it shouldn't be their job to refund these games. Like, as in, this is nothing to do with them. It should be Sony's responsibility to say, yeah, we fucked you over, but we will give you your money back. Do you know what I mean?
Like, what Sony should do is create some type of like mock PlayStation Network account that is legally allowed in those 118 countries.
Yeah.
Where it's literally just a sign-up thing with the most basic minimum things. Yeah. Because you know that this has nothing to do with the security and safety of its players. It's about collecting data.
It's about having the data on how long people are playing. It's so that they can also do the thing that Xbox does, where it is, we're now branching out into PC, and we want to be able to include PC player numbers on our monthly active user thing, but we can't do that if they're only playing on Steam. However, we can if they have to link a PlayStation account to it, right?
Yeah.
So it's also part of that. And I get it, because competition's competition. You are behind in certain metrics, as well as your console selling and all that kind of stuff. You're moving away from the console being your focus, even though you're not telling people that yet. We also know that on the back end of things, I think part of this is them probably doing testing for. We know that their own PC launcher is coming at some point. Like, they are working on it. There's obviously trophy integration with the upcoming release of Ghost of Tsushima. I know that those developers have recently confirmed that for the single player portion of that game, you won't need to have a PSN account, but you will if you want to play the multiplayer. I like that they've been upfront about that. I like that they've also separated it in that way, because some people won't want to play the multiplayer on that game. But this really sucks for HellDivers. What I want to say about the review bombing stuff is, I do get it, and I understand people's frustration, and it's the right thing to do. And I wouldn't normally say that, but the reason I say it this time is because if you go into the developers Discord and everything, the HellDivers 2 Discord, the community managers are telling you, like, if you're not happy with this, go and leave a review on Steam so that Sony can see. Because let's remember as well, this studio isn't even owned by Sony. So HellDivers, as much as it's a first-party IP, because Sony own it, it's being developed by a second-party company. And Sony has screwed them over here. Because if they now go and make a game, there is, like you said, any goodwill they had, any trust they had with their community is effectively gone because of a decision that wasn't even made by them. And that sucks.
Yeah. Like, really, I wouldn't be a bit surprised if, like, Xbox reaches out and says, like, hey, we, if you guys want to make a game for us in the future or whatever like that, we won't have any type of sign up thing like that. We'll leave you to have your own goodwill and curate that.
And also the thing is as well, let's be very clear, Xbox does require account linking for their games, but they're very upfront about it. That's the difference. And I'm not saying that Sony wasn't, because obviously the requirement was there initially, right? The problem is, you then take that requirement away, allow people to buy the game who are in regions where they're not going to be able to fulfill that requirement, and then cause a problem months later. All they had to do to fix this entire situation really is, back when they took the requirement away temporarily, just don't list it in those countries that couldn't have PSN. Like, that's your other way of dealing with it. Is don't list it in those countries. Have a note on there that this will at some point require linking to a PSN account. And if you're upfront with things, people won't worry as much. But the way this whole situation has been handled is terrible. Like, it's really bad.
Yes, the Xbox has less country support.
Do they?
Yeah. Well, I'm based on what I'm Googling here is because, like, Xbox is available in there's like 42 countries or something like that.
Interesting.
So it's way less. But still, like, I think that honestly, like, anybody with the right mind would be like, yeah, you don't have to have this requirement.
Yeah, I agree. I think that,
it's so dumb.
I think the reason that Xbox do it is because of some sort of agreement they have with the way that they agreed to put the games on Steam. I think was something about having to link the accounts, because people can then still get achievements on Xbox as well as the Steam achievements. I don't know, it's a weird thing in that way.
But yeah, it'd be interesting to see what happens in, like, leading up to June, if Sony, like, backpedals some of this stuff, or if
I would imagine if they're sensible, they will, right? Because this has really damaged not only them and the perception of them, but it's damaged the studio, it's damaged the game. this will make people who were planning to buy the game now not buy the game. Like, there are people who haven't bought this game yet that won't buy it now because of this thing, you know, and it's silly. Like, the game can function without the requirement. You only want it to be required so that they can give you the data. Why don't you have it as an optional thing so that
Yeah. And
so,
like, I'm bringing this up here. HellDivers 2 is now the 7th highest grossing game in Sony history in the US. Without PC, it wouldn't have even cracked the top 20.
yeah, precisely. Oh, I know that another to put that in a little bit more perspective, over 50% of the sales of the game were on PC. So over half of the audience is on PC. And you have just shot that audience in the foot. Essentially. Yeah. So, you know, this is a really bad decision. I hope that they remedy it in some way. Like, just do something to sort it out. I think they also, to be quite honest, if what the community managers and stuff from the studio have said is true, I think they need to do a better job of communicating their decisions with second party studios. Like, this is a game they made for you. This is a game that, you know, is their most successful game ever, and you've just pulled the rug out from under them.
Yeah, I mean, Sony might even be behind the censored outfit in Stellar Blade that has caused controversy towards Shift Up.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
And I mean, I'll tell you right now, that outfit is not the most revealing one in the game. So I don't know why people are bitching about it.
Yeah, I've heard that. But before we get to what you've been playing, because we will speak about some more things later.
Our last news thing.
Why don't we get to our last news thing and have a bit of a conversation, because it is more positive news in the gaming world.
Oh, for sure. So Microsoft has announced that an Xbox Game Showcase will be available. Will be on June 9th, as well as a redacted direct for June, which clearly has a Call of Duty symbol.
Yeah.
I don't know why they're calling it redacted.
So,
the Xbox Game Showcase, the first to include games across the Activision, Blizzard, Bethesda, and Xbox Game Studios brands, will be live streamed on June 9th, starting at 10 a.m. PT. 1 p.m. ET, and 6 p.m. BST. For the second year in a row, the showcase will take place in Los Angeles, California, during the same week as Summer Games Fest. The showcase will be followed by a direct with Microsoft is currently billing as Redacted, which is reportedly related to the next Call of Duty game. We'll be airing a special deep dive into the next installment of a beloved franchise, reads a post on Xbox Wire announcing the event. According to The Verge, Microsoft will also have a lot of games to show at the event, including games planned for 2025. This report also lists what it claims are target launch months for Xbox's first-party games coming in 2024, which include Starfield's Shattered Space expansion, the new Call of Duty, Indiana Jones and the Great Circle, Flight Simulator 2024, and Avowed. This is their E3.
Yeah. And we've seen a lot of jokes about the fact that they've basically got enough stuff now that they have created their own E3. Like, it's literally like they could have this be a multi-day thing if they wanted to, right?
Oh, yeah.
So, I think it is interesting that obviously I like that they're doing the separate direct afterwards for Call of Duty, because I think that went well for Starfield last year. I think whatever you want to think about the Starfield game itself, the way that game was shown in that individual direct, I think was one of the best showings of an individual game ever. In terms of it was very well produced. They let the devs speak, but not for too long. They showed a lot of the game. They gave a lot of insight. And I think that if they can do a similar thing for Call of Duty, that will be really, really cool. I think the only reason they're calling it Redacted is like kind of a tongue-in-cheek, we know you know what this is, and we're leaving enough there for you to figure it out what it is. But we wanted to call it Redacted just to make the conversation happen. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, it's just, they could have done an image that didn't, I don't know, have like the Black Ops kind of logo
Yeah,
coloring and
yeah.
stuff, the frigging like White House in the background.
They
Like,
could have done something a bit more mysterious, right? And I think that some people have wondered, like, why try and be mysterious when, in a weird way, it might have been more effective to just say, "Oh yes, and we'll have the Call of Duty direct immediately follow it." Like that
unless
would have
they're gonna
been.
call it something else and going, oh, we don't have to put this on PlayStation. Welcome to the new Modern
but
Warfare series.
but I'm very
Call of
excited.
Duty's dead.
First of all, I want to talk about the games they have coming up, right? Because
Yeah.
obviously it isn't going to be in this showcase, but Hellblade 2 is coming very soon. Uh, I'll be reviewing that for Outer Haven, either, depending on if we get a code or not over there. It might be at embargo or it might be after release of the game, but I will be reviewing that over there. Jeff will be reviewing it for us because apparently Hellblade, the first one, is one of his favorite games. So you have that there. Go and find his original review of that game and read what he thought there. Um, I'm quite excited for that, but it sounds like if this stuff is to be believed, and Tom Warren, who is actually quite a good source for Microsoft-based things, said that the schedule he heard was that they're aiming for September for the Starfield DLC, and then I think late October for Call of Duty. I think it was Avowed and Flight Sim in November, and then Indiana Jones in December. And if that is their second half of the year, that is a strong second half of the year. And I know that, yes, Call of Duty obviously isn't exclusive. Potentially no game is exclusive anymore. We'll talk about that in a minute, because I think that's an interesting part of their show. But Call of Duty potentially being on Game Pass day one for the first time is going to be a massive thing. And
Yeah, I'll actually play it. I didn't play the last one because I heard the campaign was only like 3 hours.
it was, yeah. And so Call of Duty being on Game Pass potentially day one for the first time is a massive thing. Some of these games have been really long awaited. I'm excited to see what they show for 2025 as well, because I like that they're going to show things that are maybe a little bit further away. But why don't we talk a little bit, Jeff, because we still got some time here. Why don't we talk a little bit about maybe what we expect to see or what we would like to see at this showcase?
Well, yeah, I think it's about time we see something for Perfect Dark.
Yeah, I agree with you on
You
that
know,
one. I think it's been long
um,
enough that it would be nice
yeah,
to get the
I
first
think
glimpse at gameplay there.
Contraband.
Ooh,
Finally seeing
yeah.
something about that. That would be good. Maybe getting an update on Everwild.
Okay, okay.
But
Anything
Everwild's
else?
another one that I could see going to PlayStation as well, just
Yeah.
because it's
So, so,
uh,
so while we're on the subject, because you've just brought that up, how do you think they're going to handle the exclusive or not exclusive thing in this showcase? Because I'm not that concerned. I own all platforms. It makes no difference to me, right? I'll play them on
I don't think
Xbox
they'll
because they're going
talk
to be
about it
later
at
on
all.
Game Pass. But what I mean is, normally when they'll reveal a game, they might say like console exclusive or X. Do we think that goes away? Do they get rid of that?
I could see them doing that. I mean, it speeds up the show as well too. Gives it a better pace when you don't have those breaks all the time.
Yeah, yeah,
They may say launch exclusive,
yeah. I wondered whether they might.
but I think honestly having no wording would allow them to like not be held accountable for saying certain things and stuff. Because I know that like
Yeah.
each of these games released in the next 12
My
months,
one
like that bit
my
them in the
one
ass.
concern, if they had no wording at all, is that the perception would then be that every single one of the games is coming, right? And I think that if
Yeah, but I
if
think that's a better trade-off than being like going against your word when you're
true,
saying like
that's true.
console exclusive.
That's true, because I think the other thing is when you say exclusive in any way, even if
Yeah.
you only say launch exclusive, a lot of people are then still gonna bash you when it comes to the other platform later. So
Yeah. I don't know. It's hard to say how they're going to handle it, but I don't think there'll be any any information during that showcase.
Things that I'd like to see. Well, one that we know is probably showing up is Gear 6. You
Yeah,
know,
the voice one of the voice actors literally leaked that, so
yeah,
that's happening.
and I expect that game to release next year. If I was making a bet right now, I would say that that's a kind of
Yeah.
late next year game. Um,
Yeah.
I'm quite looking forward to maybe seeing like Clockwork Revolution, because that looked cool from In Exile last time that we saw it, and they
Yeah.
did say the way that they showed it made it seem like it's maybe further along than we would think, and I could see that potentially being a next year release as well. Um, something like South of Midnight, which we saw previously at one of their showcases, which had a unique art style to it from Compulsion Games, I think might show up. They have a lot of stuff, and I'm really intrigued. Are we gonna get our first look at the new Doom that's potentially coming next year? Like,
No, I think we got Indiana Jones coming from Bethesda, so I think that'll be something later on. I don't know if they'll double dip.
interesting. Because that's the other thing. We have to remember they also do the January normally developer direct now, right? So
Yeah.
so they could save a few announcements for that. I'm really intrigued. One that I would like to see that we've been waiting a really long time to see is State of Decay 3. I wanna see what's going on with that and how far along that is, because obviously
I hope it's good, because I didn't like the first two at all.
interesting. They originally announced that, I believe, in the 2020 showcase before the console came out.
Yeah.
And they made it seem like it's a significantly bigger budget. I know that team has grown as well, so
Yeah.
I'm excited to see what they can do with more resources, because they are one of the teams that I felt like neither of those first two games were great, but they had something there in the concept that could have been really cool. And I think that with an extra level of polish and with some more resources behind the idea, I'm really excited to see what they can kind of do with that. I'm looking forward to this show. Like, I think we say this every year, of course we do, but let's look at last year. Last year's Xbox show was really good, and I don't think anyone could deny that. It was a really good showing, game after game. They had some fun things, and I think that they've got enough stuff now that there's always going to be mystery every year of like, oh, what's going to show up, and when are we going to, it's like, are we going to see Perfect Dark? Maybe, maybe not. Are we going to see Fable again? And is Fable coming next year? Because that was the original kind of rumor that
Yeah,
went around.
I could see them showing like Fable gameplay.
So it's going to be really interesting. I'm looking forward to it. I imagine, based on their previous kind of showings over the last few years, that this is probably somewhere between an hour and a half to 2 hours for the main showcase, and then probably something like half an hour for the Call of Duty separate showcase direct thing there. I also would expect that we get a Call of Duty trailer in the main showcase. I think they'll do it the way they did with Starfield, where you get a trailer and then it says like tune in afterwards for more details.
Yeah.
The main thing I'd really like from Activision though in this showcase is just give me that drop of Activision back catalogue onto Game Pass. And I think that would be amazing. Especially even if it's not like, oh, everything right now. Even if they said over the next week or over the next 2 weeks, you're going to get every Activision game available on Game Pass. I think that would be a really big moment because people are waiting for that. And also, I want to play Crash Bandicoot 4, please. So But yeah, I'm looking forward to this. Obviously, there's that rumored PlayStation show of some kind at the end of May as well. So if and when we hear about that, we will let you know, and I'm sure it will be on our website as well. But for now, Jeff, I believe you've been playing some things. So what do you have?
Yeah, so Jordan, I've got bad news and I've got good news.
Let's
What do you
let's
want to hear first?
let's go with the bad.
Yeah, so I am not really enjoying another Crab's Treasure. There, it's I think it's fine. I think that there's some really good like character moments and like the dialogue is really good. I like parts of the story and where that goes. I like how it's kind of structured its villains in ways that are kind of interesting, including like one moment where you're just kind of like, wait, what? Like it's got some decent little things to it, but I've like the camera absolutely sucks when you're trying to explore small areas. You'll have so much stuff that'll just obscure your view. Trying to like fight on some platforms can get a little annoying with the swinging kind of charge that Krill does. The whole last area, or one of the last areas, I had no targeting. My targeting would not work at all. So I could
Wow.
swing my sword and stuff, but I couldn't actually target
Oh
and move
wow.
around.
Yeah, yeah. So you couldn't
The
have the
clicking
lock on.
target wouldn't work. They acknowledged that there's a crash if you kill like a certain pufferfish type of enemy, and it's weird because like when you kill it, it goes. So like when you killed it, it would go black, and then it would just go to the front of the screen, and then go red, and then crash. And it did that every single time you killed them.
That's really weird. That's
Yeah,
a
so they acknowledged it on Twitter yesterday.
um.
But
Obviously, I've played a little bit of the game, and I think I'm sort of in your camp. I don't dislike it. Uh,
yeah,
if I think that if I was to review it, I'd probably be around the 7 out of 10 mark. Like I do think there's something there, but
like I've enjoyed it less and less as I've played. And according to a walkthrough that I followed just because I got stuck in one area, I'm
mm,
about half hour, 45 minutes away from beating it. Um, but yeah, like I'm not loving it. I think like the combat's fine. I think the combat is extremely basic. Like it doesn't really,
yeah.
you're not learning like that much more in terms of like some abilities and stuff. It doesn't feel like it's got the legs to kind of
It
like
it doesn't
fuel
have
it, and like
the it doesn't have the depth of other Souls like
it
games,
doesn't
right?
have the crab legs. Yeah, there we go.
um,
Yeah, like it's I don't know. Like yeah,
to
I'm not
me, to
really
me,
loving it.
it to me it feels very much like, and I think the accessibility features are part of this as well. To me, it feels very much like this is a light Souls-like experience that is aimed more towards younger players, and I think that
Kind of. I mean, it is still very, very difficult, even with the accessibility stuff. Like, you can use the gun if you want and like one shot everything, because there's like these like large towering things that just fire lasers down, and they're a pain in the ass. So every single time I encountered those guys, I just turned the gun on, killed them, turned the gun off, and then basically just kept on my way.
nice, nice.
And like you get shells that kind of give you different abilities, like glue lids that allow you to spin around, or like
Well,
um,
you have been writing a review for this one, right? So hopefully, by the time people are seeing this episode in about 3 to 4 days, the review might be on the site by then. And
hopefully I am going to be posting the Grand Blue Fantasy relink. I was going to post it last week and I completely forgot, but it's done. I just got to add screenshots.
nice.
So that'll be going up today. My goal is to get the review for another Crab's Treasure out by hopefully Wednesday.
Yeah.
That's my plan, because
Well,
like I've
if
only got about half
well,
hour left.
put it this way: if it is out, it will be linked below, and then you can find out in full what Jeff really thinks about the game. And his score as well. We talked about scores last week, but please don't just scroll to the bottom and read the score, because we have things to say about these video games.
Yeah, like again, like I think it's fine.
Yeah.
Like I think it's fine. I don't think that it's a bad game. I just think that it's very unpolished because like I've had so many things where like I'll jump on a platform and like I'll see something down there and I'll jump down to it and there was nothing there and then I can't get back up, so I have to forcibly kill myself because if I jump in the water and die, I just appear
Ah.
back on that platform.
Yeah. Yeah. So I've
And
got a
it
question
doesn't.
for you then, Jeff.
Yeah.
Because I was talking about this because I'll actually, here's a bit of news for you. I will be making an appearance on Outer Haven's podcast also on Wednesday, um, where we recorded that a few days ago. And one of the things we were talking about is technical issues in games. And what I'd like to know is, from a pure technical standpoint, if this was a more polished game, how much would that affect your opinion? How much do you think the technical side of it
I
is
don't think much. I don't think
affecting?
much really.
Experience?
I am disappointed in parts of the game, but like the technical stuff is just one fraction of it. Like maybe it would go up a point. I don't know.
Yeah,
But the thing
because
is,
that's
that's the state of the game that I'm playing.
yeah. So that's the reason I wanted to ask you that, because we were talking on Outer Haven's podcast, Spectator Mode, about kind of technical issues and how we each approach them in a review. And I said that for me, I unless the tech issues have broken a game where it's actually unplayable, I'll never sort of dock it more than maybe 1 point or half a point, because tech issues are not the core of the game, and tech issues can also be fixed, so they don't really, unless they're directly impacting on the experience in some, like, this is
Well, this one
literally not playable
kind of
way.
is because like there's like the pathing for the level design is abysmal in this game.
You
Like
got
it
lost
is,
a few times,
lost.
right?
You'll get lost so many times because it like there's some parts where it tells it extremely well,
Yeah.
and then there's other parts where it just doesn't do it. And like you'll want to like jump and explore certain areas, and then you'll get like stuck in like a falling animation because you're not supposed to be on that platform.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
yeah, it's a game that I had every intent in absolutely loving. Because like there are parts of that game that are
A-
very
And I
good.
know that we both, in our initial impressions of it, we both really liked the game. Like, in our
Yeah,
first
but
sort
I've
of
liked it
hours,
less
two
and less
hours
as
of
I
playing.
played.
That's a shame. That is a shame. I'm still looking forward to playing more of it, which I will do at some point. So keep listening to our podcast over the weeks, and I will update you with my experience with the game. But you do have, I believe, some very good news, Jeff.
Oh yeah. Stellar Blade's probably one of the best games I've played in the last couple of years.
That's crazy because
It
that's
is
not what I
un
expected.
it is unbelievably good. Um, like yeah, I am really digging it. Like I'm doing everything in this game. I'm doing like every side quest. I just collected the 49th can, so once I get back to Zion, I can unlock the outfit for that. So I collect all the cans. Like I was telling my roommate, like this game is good because I've done all of the fishing in the game. I normally hate fishing in video games. I will ignore it. I will not even touch it. Tales of Arise had fishing, and I'm like, fuck that. Um, but no, I've done all the fishing. Like I caught a killer shark. Like like some of the stuff is like the fishing is hilarious. The fishing is actually really good, and there's accessibility features for the fishing as well. And
Oh,
this game has
nice.
good accessibility features, like it'll slow down attacks,
Oh, that's
and
cool.
it'll give you prompts. So instead of just a blue flash, it'll have a blue flash and it'll have the button prompt and it'll slow down.
Oh, that's
So
super
you can do
cool,
that.
actually. I really like that.
Um, the fishing is this thing where you're like you're slamming down the square button while pulling against the fish, and then you have to press the R2 stick, the R2 triggers like gently to like have it like balance in this area. But the accessibility allows you to just hold down the square button
Oh, that's
or
cool.
hold down R2, and then it automatically goes to that spot.
So
You
it
don't have
makes
to
it
worry about
much easier
balancing it.
if you find one of those
Yeah,
things difficult. That's cool.
'cause some of them are like tiny, and you just have to balance it out. You have a timer going.
Um, I have a
Um,
question, Jeff. Before you speak about
yeah.
more on this seemingly amazing game, are you
Oh, it's amazing.
essentially telling me that I should buy this game and play it.
It's really good. Yeah, like if you can get it, like, you could wait for sale, who knows. Um, but
But I do
no,
know that right
it's
now you're saying this is potentially your game of the year, right? So
oh yeah, like honestly, Space Marine 2 and the Elden Ring DLC could be the only thing I think that comes out this year that tops it.
Stellar Blade
Um,
really is a stellar game.
oh, it's amazing. Like basically it's like you play as Eve, who is kind of like an android lady. And she's done it in that kind of fan servicey kind of way, and like which is fine. I mean, like I'm a huge fan of Senra Kuruga, so I'm like fan service is definitely my lane. And like a lot of the outfits and stuff that you get are everything from like a like red fluffled like blouse and stuff with a skirt and whatever. There's a lot of short skirts. There's a lot of like, oh, we can almost see your butt when you're running. And there's a lot where it's like you can't see her butt when you're running. There's a lot of stuff. There's an outfit where it's literally just like all side boobs. Like there's areas where you're wearing this big giant like space jacket. Like there's outfits
And
of
yet
every
there's
single
people
type
kicking off
of
about
design.
censorship, right?
Oh, fucking like 3 inches of like black fabric. Who cares? Like that outfit is like the worst outfit, anyways. Even if it had like all that cleavage and stuff, it would still be the worst outfit. It looks like she's just wearing like a green sack.
Yeah.
Um, but like the outfits and stuff are neat because they're tied to everything. So like a lot of the major side quests that you're doing will get you an outfit. Exploring off the beaten path will get you a ton of outfits for both you and both for Lily and both for like the male character in the game, like the robot. Like I ended up getting like bunny ears for the little like drone that follows you around.
Nice.
Like this game it feels like if you took Devil May Cry and Nier Automata and merged it into one game.
Oh wow, that's
So
exciting.
like
That's
it
exciting.
has like it has Souls-like properties in regards to like a camp where it refuels your enemies and like the parries and dodges and stuff, but it doesn't really have like the difficulty of sorry, there's this squirrel that's like dancing on the fence and I just see this tail just going back and forth.
He's
So
hearing you
funny.
talking about Stellar Blade and he's getting excited.
Yeah, and like yeah, he's just like, "Oh my God, I love Celebrate." Um and like yeah, the combat is like you have your standard attacks, your power attacks, like you have special abilities that you can pull off. There's a when you do certain things, it builds up another meter which has other special attacks. And then there's like a big special attack where you kind of transform and like have like the screen just goes red and you're just like killing things left and right. It's almost like a fury kind of rage mode. There's a like the
Nice.
combat just feels fun. Like I don't have an issue with the delay of the parry or the dodge or anything like that. I think it's perfect.
As you've been very positive about this game, Jeff, the final
Yeah.
question I'll ask you on it, and it's a quick one because I'll still talk about a couple of things. Um, is there one negative thing that you can sort of point to that you don't like?
Yeah. I mean, like there's a couple things where they're kind of like smaller things. I don't think the story is as involving as I think it could be, because it's very unclear kind of what the story is to a certain extent. But I think my biggest issue is some of the platforming feels very loose. So it's very easy to accidentally fall to your death
I've
or
seen
or
this, and
miss a
I
jump
thought
or something.
so. I saw one section of platforming that someone shared on Twitter, and as soon as I saw it, I was like, "Oh, this is gonna have issues. Like, this is gonna have
Yeah,
problems."
like I don't like it's the for me like it's not a major issue because if you take those jumps kind of like and time them properly, like if you're racing through stuff, you're just
Mhm.
going to get killed. Like there's a part with like a conveyor belt with lasers where you have to like dodge the lasers and use the boxes to like block the laser to then move past through, and if you hit the lasers then these cannons come for you and like it's just like a shit show. But like the, there's like every little issue I have with this game is so absolutely tiny.
Yeah,
Like it feels incredibly well polished. The bosses are so freaking fun. Exploration's great because everywhere you go, you're either unlocking a new outfit or you're unlocking like the ability to like make your character more powerful. Like they're putting the things in the right places, like finding the cans because there's 49 cans. And when she grabs a can or whatever like that, she'll grab a can and then she'll go like posing with the can or
Nice,
stuff, or this
nice.
like little side
I
one.
did
Like it's
see.
neat. It's
So I
very
saw
cheeky.
somebody describe it as it's almost like a PS2 game, but brought up to modern standards. And I thought what they meant is in its design, like in the sense of it's designed in a very video gamey way, and they're placing things
It
in the right
is,
places. They're kind of
yeah,
a bit more focused than other games
to a
tend to
certain
be these
extent.
days.
I think to a certain extent, but I definitely don't feel it across the game in the ways that I felt like Outcast felt like a 360 game.
That makes
You
sense.
know,
Yeah,
I don't get that this plays like a PS2 game,
yeah,
like in ways that other games feel like a PS2 game.
yeah. So
Um,
it doesn't have
because
the
like again,
bad
like
feeling, but it has maybe some of the design
oh,
language.
it's fluid as fuck. It feels like as good to play like Devil May Cry 5.
That's
Like
amazing.
it doesn't feel like Devil May Cry 1. It feels like Devil May Cry 5
That's
in
amazing.
some ways.
That's amazing.
And it's fun. Like the level design is absolutely breathtaking. Like it does that yellow paint thing, so you're gonna know where you need to go and all that stuff.
Nothing
But
wrong
like
with that.
and like it's yeah, like it's got these moments that feel kind of like pulled out of like Platinum, where you're in like a decommissioned roller coaster and you're like grinding the rails and stuff and moving around and all that stuff. And yeah, like it feels good to use. Like I wish that like a little minor annoyances. Sometimes it can be tough to like get to a ladder. Like your character will like move to the side or whatever, or like when you're sprinting, it's really tough to like then maneuver where you're going when you need to stop suddenly.
Yeah,
Like just tiny little things.
yeah. And
But
also
and I wish this
the thing
game had
is,
a screenshot mode,
yeah.
like a photo mode, because it doesn't. So any screenshot I'm taking in battle is blurry as fuck.
Oh, that's a shame. That is a shame. Um, the thing is as well with a game like this, when it's this good, seemingly, you can put up with the little annoyances, right? It's something I talk about sometimes when I'm
Yeah,
talking about
nothing's
games.
driving me away. Like nothing
Is
feels like a glaring issue.
and it's like there's no games that exist that have no issues. As much as Jeff might try and tell you one or two, I'm sure Jeff can think of one or two, but there's no games that have no issues. There's always going to be some sort of small little thing that could be better or could be improved, and that's the beauty of video games. But Stellar Blade sounds amazing. So thank you for
Yeah,
telling us all about it.
and like the thing too is like there's 74 outfits,
Yeah, I think you
which
said
include
74
like
to me here.
variants. Like I'm at 30 something right now. I have every outfit that I can get in my first playthrough, and then there's a lot of outfits that are exclusive to the new game plus, which I'm going to be jumping in and playing. And the new game plus for this is going to be the type of thing I play when I've got nothing kind of on the burner.
Yeah, nice.
Because I definitely do want to go through new game plus, um, which I normally never do. Um,
Yeah.
it's very, very rare that I play through a game a second time. But this studio, like much like Liza P, has shown that they can take a genre and a type of game, they can make it their own, and they can have an identity based around that.
Mhm.
And I think that this studio is going to do some amazing stuff. Like I would love a sequel to Stellar Blade. Like I don't know where the story wraps up because there's a good ending, a bad ending, and a secret ending, and I don't know which one's canon, and I don't know if it allowed like I don't know if the ending has Eve like discombobulated in the pieces, and then who knows who you play as the second one. I have no idea, so I
Interesting.
don't know how likely a sequel could
Fair.
happen in this game.
Fair.
But
Well, of course, you'll have a
yeah,
review coming for that at some point as well, so people can read that on the site.
oh yeah,
And
I'll be beating that game today. I'm like very very near the end.
nice, nice,
Because I've already done all the fishing, I've already done all the outfit stuff. Because like I've already done all the side quests. Like um, so yeah,
nice,
yeah, this game is unbelievably fun. Like
nice.
it is absolutely captured my attention.
Lovely, lovely. As I was saying, I haven't played much, so I don't really have too much to talk about this week. But what I will say is that as of today, my plan is now that I'm sort of well enough to actually play something again, I'm gonna go back to House Flipper 2 and explore the sandbox mode in that game. And then once I've done that for a couple of hours, I'll kind of finish off my review there with that game. So that will be out within the next few days, as long as the world doesn't end or something. um, but we never know these days what's going to happen. And other than that, just a quick update on my Fallout 4 journey, because you might remember that I said I was replaying Fallout 4 last time we recorded. And I've never got that far in Fallout 4, maybe like 8 hours maximum. And I finally, for the first time ever, got to Diamond City. So for people who've played Fallout 4, they know what that means. It's a key place in the sort of main quest line. And it's the first time I've got that far into the game. I'm really enjoying it. I am playing with a few mods on and things like that, but they don't seem to be breaking my experience too badly, so that's fun. And I am enjoying it. And we were talking about Starfield earlier, but it's very interesting playing Fallout 4 now, having that kind of appreciation for the game now that I didn't have previously, and seeing that actually Starfield and Fallout, even though they have lots of similarities, they're very different games, and I think they're actually designed for very different types of players, because there are things that I think both games do significantly better than the other. Like, I think there's no doubt that Starfield's combat is better. There's a reason it doesn't have a VAT system. Like, the combat is far superior in Starfield compared to Fallout 4. But then, go on.
Question I was going to actually raise today, and I completely forgot. Do you think Starfield's popularity would increase tenfold if they did a Starfield TV series?
I think it would help a lot. Yeah, I think it would help a lot. But I don't. But the issue is, because of what the Starfield story is, I don't even know how you would tackle that, really. like
yeah, like for me, like I think the way that you could do it is you make each season about collecting like one of those fragments,
one of the
and
artifacts,
you just simplify it that it's 3 fragments or whatever the case is, like not that many. And then your first season you could do that undercover pirate thing.
Yeah, absolutely. Do you think then, because this has sent me on a little tangent now, but I got about 5 minutes, so we're good. I want to know, what do you think, right? Because obviously we've seen the massive success of Fallout now after the show. I think that Fallout 76 is more popular than it's ever been. I think Todd Howard said on Kinda Funny the other day that they, across all of the Fallout games, they actually had 5 million players in a single day the other week. So the franchise is very popular right now. And do you think that we'll... First of all, first question is, do you think we'll start to see more adaptations with the hope of reinvigorating some franchises? And then secondly, what franchises, if any, come to the top of your mind in terms of that could use that type of thing very well?
One I've got for sure, however, its catalog of games on like the certain platforms, like I don't know if it would really benefit too much, because like Fallout 76 had that multiplayer thing, so it was something that you could share with friends, whereas like the last time the series did multiplayer, people fucking hated it. But for me, that would be Wolfenstein.
Yeah, because that's a good shout.
Because it would be like a period type of thing where it takes place in a certain era and whatever, and you'd have like the robots and stuff, and you would get Alan Richardson as BJ Blazkowicz.
Yeah, you would.
Like, he would be perfect.
Do you know the one I would really like? And there's been a lot of questions about this recently, as well as the weird Division 2 thing that Netflix were meant to do that they never released. But
with Jake Gyllenhaal and
but I would like to see, because we know that there's a Splinter Cell remake coming of the first game.
Yeah.
I actually think either a Splinter Cell TV show or movie could do very well for Ubisoft, and I think it is something that could translate very well to a movie. We heard years ago that Tom Hardy was meant to be connected to a Splinter Cell movie that I think never happened in the end.
Thank God.
But that's where I go with it, is like, look at one of these older franchises that maybe hasn't been as active recently, and you could
Yeah.
use that as a way of reinvigorating them. I think, we know that the Metal Gear Solid movie is coming at some point. That's probably going to kickstart another era for that franchise, I would imagine.
Yeah.
So I'm interested
You
to
could
see
do
what
Rainbow
happens.
Six. Could be an interesting one.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of interesting things to do. Obviously, Ubisoft have tried Assassin's Creed before, but that was, we all know how that went.
Yeah, the director was like, "Yeah, we should do more of the real life stuff and less of the actual Assassin's thing." People love that.
I mean,
That movie.
people would have
Fuck that.
loved that if it was Desmond. Do you know what I mean? I think that's the only way they could have got away with that.
See, like the thing with the Assassin's Creed stuff is it's serialized so well for seasons.
Yeah,
Like
it
you
is.
you you know you make your first season basically in like where the original games took
Mhm.
place and stuff, and then you could do a season where like, oh, now suddenly it's Bayek,
And you
and
could
you could
go,
even have the
yeah,
guy who plays Bayek
because he's an
be
actor
Bayek,
who's just released the
you
game.
know. Yeah, and then you can do like the most popular season, which would be with Cassandra, because I
Yeah.
mean, obviously, Assassin's
And
Creed
the
Odyssey
other
was the
thing
best
is, with
Assassin's Creed.
if you had an Assassin's Creed TV show like that, you also potentially would have the freedom to do your own thing and go to places and times that the games haven't been to.
Yeah,
And so that
I
would be
mean, it
really
would be a
interesting
very
to see.
expensive show having to change the set decorations every fucking season,
It
but
would.
still,
It would. But also people would watch
Ubisoft
it.
likes to spend money, so
Yeah,
let's do
yeah,
it.
that's true. But let us know what you've been watching, what you've been playing, and we will see you hopefully next week, if not the week after. But stay tuned to the website because Jeff's got some reviews coming. I'm sure we'll have some gaming news on the site as well. And hopefully, you've enjoyed this episode and you can share it all with your friends and family. But until next time, we will see you. Goodbye.